Welcome, one and all, to the Ferret and Raccoon podcast, episode 181. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the first podcast of December 2021. And boy, do we have a jam-packed podcast for you. As I'm sure a lot of you can already tell by the size of this episode, there wasn't a lot really going on in the world, mainly because I think everyone's pretty much considered this year to be over. We're already coming up to awards season. Things aren't really being announced. Things are being repeated in terms of, I guess, trailers and, just general reminders of, hey, this thing's coming out next year. And I'm not going to talk about a trailer or a film or a TV show or whatever that I've already talked about, because that'd be a bit redundant, and I like to kind of bring you guys something new and interesting each time. And as I've said plenty of times before, I don't like to talk about filler on this podcast. We're not doing things that, or at least talking about things that I think are not worth my time or your time to an extent. But yeah, things have been a little bit crazy over the last 2 weeks, or since the last podcast. Over the last few days, I have been a bit ill, unfortunately. It is not anything serious, so do not panic. It has literally just been a little bit of a cold, and it's been very hard to kind of recover from that, given that I work primarily outside. So yeah, I could wrap up as much as I want to. The fact that I have a cold and that it is cold, yeah, doesn't really help. So at least now I'm finally coming off of this. So if you do hear some awkward cuts, it's probably just me coughing through the mic. So I'll cut that if anything. But yeah, other than that, I've had a pretty productive kind of 2 weeks to some extent. I have been doing up my room to an extent, a lot of shopping, spent a lot of money on it, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, because my bank account is kind of screaming. And a lot of people are revealing, well, not revealing, but they're kind of doing like their Christmas deals, and obviously Black Friday happened. So yeah, mine and a lot of people's bank accounts are looking pretty low or empty right now. But I did manage to play a brand new game this year. I'm not going to say what game it is, because I am going to reserve that for the end of the year podcast, which is the actual next podcast. This is the final normal structured podcast, and we're going out on a bit of a whimper, unfortunately. But let's get into it, because let's not waste too much time, dawdling on, things that aren't necessarily important right now. So the first of two trailers we have to talk about is going to be for DC League of Super Pets. They've been teasing this one for a while now, and I've been kind of interested in seeing what it's actually going to look like. And finally seeing the trailer, it's very obviously or very clearly going to be a kids film. This is not for DC fans. It's not for adults. I don't even think this is going to be one of those films where they put in references for said DC fans. It doesn't look like that. It's looking just a little bit too safe to some extent. But they're clearly after the success or the winning formula of like Illumination, the people who did like Minions, Despicable Me. They want to sing. They want a Secret Life of Pets, which is what I think this film is going to remind a lot of people of. Maybe that's their intention. I don't know. I don't really blame DC for doing this, because DC animations don't exactly make things for children. Not Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers has Looney Tunes and other projects. I'm talking more about DC Comics related stories for children. They don't have that. And maybe they want to branch into that. Maybe this is going to be the start of a cinematic universe. I hope not, but we'll see. But the trailer itself is interesting. It does kind of do a few things that are unique to an extent. The things that I'm not really feeling to an extent are the human designs, more specifically how Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman look. They both look bland and ugly at the same time. I do not like their designs. But at the same time, Crypto and Titus, the Bat-Hound, I believe that's who he is going to be towards the end of the film, spoilers, their designs are really cool. They have a very detailed and accurate anatomy to that of a dog, which is really good. You obviously kind of need that for the believability in your film. A good example is like their paw pads. They look really, I guess, authentic to how a dog's actual paw pads look, which is great. They've obviously done their research to an extent. They haven't just gone for it's a cartoon dog logic or design. They've kind of put a little bit of like effort into how these characters act. Not necessarily how they move, though. And I'll get into that in a second, but the other characters you do see in the film, the other animals, the pig, the squirrel, the cat, Yeah, they're just generic looking, which is a massive shame, especially when you compare them to other superhero animals we've had in the past, such as, was it Streaky, I believe it was? Yeah, Streaky, or like Comet the super horse. Some of the other, more bizarre and silly pets we've had. But yeah, I'm not feeling their designs, and there's nothing really special about them. Even their powers are nothing interesting at all. Like the pig can become big, and the squirrel can shoot lightning like he's fucking Raiden from Mortal Kombat. It's very generic. There's nothing interesting there. I'm not saying there has to be, but yeah, you'd think they'd go a little bit harder in terms of, something like DC League of Super Pets. I know this is a children's film, but it's a bit lacking to an extent. And also, apparently, that squirrel character, I think it's called Chip, that's apparently Green Lantern's pet, somewhere I read, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't recall anyone related to having a lantern or a ring being able to shoot lightning, but okay. It's safe and generic, so whatever. Haha, the turtle can move really fast. That's funny for children. I get it. But I am really surprised, and I mean, this character may appear later on in the film, but I'm really surprised that Dexter is not the main villain of this film. If he's not, that's a missed and a perfect opportunity to actually have a very underrated and underused character anywhere. For those of you who don't know, Dexter is a cat that has a red lantern ring. You can only get a red lantern ring if your heart is filled with hatred. So he's a pretty interesting character. Why not have him be the main villain, and he was abandoned as a kitten, and he has this rage, and he doesn't think humans and pets/animals should be together, and so he's done something to humans where he's gonna threaten their lives or whatever, and it's up to Crypto and Titus and the super pets to stop him. There you go, I just wrote a fantastic film for you guys. Instead, we have Lex Luthor, who seems to be the main villain, and he's boring. I'm sorry, his superpower is getting cancer, and that's not very special. And yeah, I do like some elements of this film, though. There are some things I think are pretty cool that I can appreciate, despite not being a child myself. I think the fact that Crypto and Titus, they kind of feel like their own characters. They're not just counterparts to Superman and Batman, Although, Crypto does seem to exude or have qualities of Superman. He seems to obviously love Superman as his owner. He seems to want to do good in that aspect, which I think is great for this kind of film. It's something, you can root for him. It's relatable. He's not annoying, neither. But the fact that Titus is more of a level-headed, pessimistic, who's somewhat skeptical about the whole situation, I think is great. Because in the trailer you see he just gets superpowers, and that does kind of feel grounded and very relatable. How an animal he's in the pound, who knows what happened to him. Maybe he lost his owner, maybe he God forbid was going to be killed, I don't know. He has a new lease on life, and even still he's not necessarily sure what to do with that, or if this is even a good thing. I mean, he does reference the fact that he should be dead after he gets crushed, so that's really interesting. And it should be interesting to see Kevin Hart play a character that's comedic more in the sense that he's out of the loop. And I am really liking this aspect of something a little bit different with something that's so silly. Once again, it has that believability, and it has that sense of grounded in reality, which I think works pretty well. The other things I did kind of like in this film as well was the fact that Crypto's cape is hidden in his collar. He just presses a button as it comes out. That's really cool. The fact that he wears glasses, to pretend that he's a normal dog and to hide his identity is actually really funny, because why would a dog wear glasses? It just makes him more suspicious. But I think that's really funny. And kudos to whoever came up with that idea and managed to get into the film. You are a boss. The only other thing that kind of does bother me and that is interesting about the film is the fact that the animation looks kind of stiff to me. Now, I'm not an animation expert. I don't study animation. I haven't learned animation. I don't do animation myself. Would love to someday. But to me, it doesn't look that fluid. Now, granted, what the trailer could be made of could be very early / unrendered footage, which is most likely the case, because I don't think this film is finished as of yet. Some scenes did not look like they had what's the right way to say it? It didn't look like the final touches, such as lighting or contrast or whatever, had been added to the film as of yet. It looked inconsistent in its presentation. So, one example of which I feel like best, I guess, how should I put it? Yeah, if you watch the trailer, the scene where they're in the park and Titus is obviously, doing his business. If you look, when Crypto smiles, the animation of him smiling is missing frames, or it's been slowed down incorrectly. It doesn't look natural in the sense of how animation or an animated dog or whatever would smile. There's something off about it. There's a few moments where the animation didn't seem quite there, and I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm not sure if this is just a timing sense. Whoever was doing the trailer, wanted to, they were told you have to get it in 2 minutes 30, so they had to slow down a couple of frames. I don't know, but it does look odd, and I hope that doesn't plague the film, because to be honest, Warner Brothers and / DC, they can produce some pretty awesome animations. They don't do it too often, especially with a CGI 3D look. So I am actually really rooting for this film to do well, because we may get more films in this same vein. I would love to see DC do a Zoo Crew animated film. That would be awesome. Or anyone else, just take some of the more ridiculous concepts and ideas and just make them animated. I really don't know why why Marvel doesn't do that on their Disney Plus subscription. Why there aren't more animated superhero stuff, I do not know. It's bizarre. But anyway, let's move on to our second and last trailer, which is going to be a very quick one. And that is going to be for Wyrmwood Apocalypse. Now this, I believe, is a Australian, I guess, kind of shock and horror / just horror series. There was a film that came out a while ago which got some pretty good praise. And all of a sudden, I can't even speak today, all of a sudden there's now a new film called Apocalypse. I would imagine this film is really trying to cash in on the success of Mad Max Fury Road, which was a fantastic film if you've not seen it, because I do see a lot of elements of that, female teaming up with the main character, if that is the main character, I don't know, to kind of rescue someone in a car, lots of craziness. There are those elements there, and this film is just crazy looking. It looks like whoever's behind this film is just pushing the boundaries and just doing whatever because it's badass, or it's cool, or it's going to shock people, and that's fine by me. It looks like a lot of fun. The effects and makeup is not the greatest. The zombies, or whatever they are, they're clearly wearing, contacts. It doesn't look that great, especially that one character who has contacts. I don't know if she's like half a zombie or what, but it just looks very obvious. Looks like cosplay, unfortunately, but it looks like it's going to be more of a spectacle than a film that is, I guess, more invested in, good contrast. Style over substance is what I'm trying to say, really. I'm guessing what this film is, but yeah, it looks like fun. Wanted to kind of promote that one because, yeah, some people might be interested, especially if you've liked the film. Oh, I'm trying to think of that film that Nicolas Cage was in. It was like Ghosts of Something. I talked about it a couple podcasts ago, but it reminded me of that film. Just batshit crazy film. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain and describe films like this, especially when you don't know any context behind it. But yeah, I'll probably look it up. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be our podcast for the most part. I know it is a quick one, but like I said, I don't like adding filler to this podcast, and there was no point in me, just trying to find stuff for the sake of talking about it. But anyway, let's move on to the video of the episode, which is going to be Tierra Whack with Stand Up. Just literally out of nowhere, she's finally dropped some new music, a EP to be exact. She has been releasing songs over the course of this year, but they've been for other things, weirdly enough. Like, she did one for Lego. She did one for, I guess, the 20th anniversary of Pokemon that's on that album, which is very bizarre. And I think one for Fashion Week. So she's a very interesting person, as you're probably going to see from this music video, and definitely a rapper who deserves a lot more attention, as I always want to bring her up whenever she does release new music. So hopefully you guys enjoy that video and enjoy the song. Definitely go look her up. Yeah, that's pretty much going to be this podcast. I know it was short and it was very just random and just whatever, but to be honest, that's how the end of the year usually is. Usually it's more than one person, so it's usually a lot longer. But I think everyone is currently kind of working on the end of the year podcasts, which is going to be the next one, which I'm working on as well. I don't know who's going to be on it. I can't confirm because the way the world is, it's very unpredictable. I could say we have 5 people on the podcast. By the time you hear it, it might just be me. So hope for the best. I'm trying to get some things desperately watched and listened to and played. It's not going to happen. At some point, I'm going to have to cut it off. I'm going to tell you this now. What I have to say will be very sparse, which is a bit of a shame, but that's just how things go sometimes. This year hasn't exactly been very kind to me, but what can you do? I'm still alive, so I can't complain. But yeah, I guess I'll end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.